He met her on a Tuesday, or maybe it was a simulated Tuesday. The calendar on his wall blinked error 404, time not found, which didn't help. Either way, it was raining, not earth rain, but the kind that smells like cinnamon and glitches when it hits pavement. And Max had just gotten off a 12-hour shift, making lattes for people who didn't blink often enough to be human. He had spilled oat milk on his wrist and was nursing it with an ice pack that doubled as a sentient stress counselor when the door chimed. The woman who walked in didn't look lost, but the universe behind her eyes did. Her coat shimmered between shades of navy and ultraviolet, like it hadn't decided which planet it was from yet, and the ears, they were long, not elf long, more like I can probably hear your childhood trauma. Long. She didn't order anything, she just asked, did he ever mention a blue-skinned alien princess? Max blinked. His ice pack whispered something encouraging, but he waved it off. That's not on the menu, he said. The woman tilted her head, and for a moment he felt like she could hear everything he hadn't said since birth. She took a slow breath, and then, because he couldn't stand the weight of her silence, he said, yes, once, maybe twice, but he was drunk and trying to rewire a toaster at the time, so I didn't take it seriously. She sat down, not gracefully, not dramatically, just sat like her legs gave up negotiating with the rest of her body. Something in her relaxed, and something else tightened. Then it's true. What's true? That my roommate once serenaded our microwave with alien lullabies and claimed diplomatic immunity when the cops showed up. Her lips curled, but it wasn't a smile. It was grief wearing humor like a borrowed jacket. He remembered her. Max squinted. Look, I'm really good at pretending to understand weird conversations, but this one's starting to edge into needs a PowerPoint territory. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her coat and pulled out something that looked like a cross between a compact mirror and a data cube. She slid it across the table. It lit up as soon as he touched it, flashing symbols he didn't recognize but somehow understood. His breath caught. It was like remembering a song from a dream. Your neural patterns match the key sequence, she said quietly. Neural patterns, key sequence. Lady, I'm just a barista with mild emotional repression and a caffeine dependency. She laughed once, sharp and short, like she wasn't used to it. Your name is Max Alder, born on Earth. Yes, born in Nebraska, raised in existential dread. She ignored that. You were registered as a cognitive echo in the archives of Ressa. That shouldn't be possible. Archives of where now? Ressa, home of the royal line. My line. Her voice dipped. I'm Loon. Max blinked again, then pointed at her ears. Right, that tracks. I was hidden here, on Earth, after the coup. We thought everyone tied to the royal archive had been. She paused, scrubbed. That's a lovely euphemism. We thought no one remembered. Max stared at the cube. Well, I do kinda. I mean, he talked about her. Said she had skin the color of twilight and eyes that could override firewalls. Loon looked down, suddenly fragile. That was my mother. The rain glitched again. Outside, a man walked his dog past the cafe window. The dog floated 6 inches above the ground. Neither of them noticed the tear in the sky trying to stitch itself shut. I think you've got the wrong guy, Max said. You triggered the cube. I also once triggered a government drone by trying to microwave a fork. Doesn't mean I'm a secret royal. You dream in Resson, she said. No, I dream in subtitles. She leaned forward. What do you see? Max hesitated. A staircase that goes nowhere. A woman with blue skin standing in a hallway of glass. She never speaks, but she keeps handing me a key. I always drop it. The hand covered her mouth. Max looked around, half expecting hidden cameras. Look, this is funny and terrifying, but I really think you should tell me what's going on before I start Googling alien delusions in the dopamine cycle. She stood up. Come with me. To where? To the archive, Teresa. I don't even have a passport. You won't need one. Just trust me. Max snorted. Lady, you walked into my cafe, asked about a blue alien princess, told me I might be some kind of cosmic USB drive, and now you want me to leave the planet. You're not exactly easing me in here. She paused. You can bring your ice pack. It beeped approvingly. Max sighed, tossed his apron onto the counter, and grabbed the cube. If this ends with anal probes, I'm suing. Loon tilted her head again, amused this time. Your species has such strange anxieties. You'd be anxious too if you grew up with toaster ovens that could file restraining orders. They walked out into the cinnamon glitch rain. The dog floated by again and barked in binary. Somewhere above, the tear in the sky gave up and reopened, revealing a sliver of stars. As Max stepped through the shimmer behind the cafe's back door, his bones hummed with a memory he didn't recognize. Loon glanced at him. You really don't remember, do you? Nope, but I'm hoping it comes with snacks. Only if you survive customs, Max grimaced. So that's a maybe. And then they were gone. Max regained consciousness face down, in something that had the texture of velvet and the emotional energy of a tax audit. It smelled faintly of toasted almonds and existential fear. He pushed himself up, blinked several times, and immediately got dizzy, trying not to inhale the landing dust. Loon said beside him, adjusting a collar that looked like it had been designed by someone with strong opinions about triangles. Landing dust. That wasn't in the travel brochure. We didn't land, we quantum folded. Well, fold me back. My organs are rearranged in alphabetical order. They were in what looked like a transit chamber, except it defied every known architectural principle. The walls pulsed like muscle tissue but glittered like stained glass. Shapes floated freely in midair, some of which might have been signage or might have been sentient lifeforms filing complaints. A door at the far end repeatedly opened and closed. Although there was no one near it, it seemed emotionally unstable. Max reached out, touched the ground, and it changed color. Is this carpet, alive? Yes, don't insult it. Late, I just called it moist. The floor shifted grumpily under his knees. Lune helped him up. Welcome to Portakesh Resa's hidden orbital dock. He looked around, squinting at the impossible architecture. This place looks like a cathedral fell in love with a disco ball. That's oddly accurate, a humming noise echoed. Above them, a spherical drone descended, wearing what Max could only describe as a holographic boatie. It blinked twice, projected a little interface, and spoke in a voice that could sell overpriced mattresses. Welcome, visitors. Please state your designation, purpose, and preference in background music. Jazz fusion, Max muttered. The drone word. You are now accompanied by saxophone-based ambience. Try not to panic. Max immediately panicked. Why does jazz fusion make me feel like someone's plotting against me in a trench coat? Lune ignored him. We're here to access the archive. Royal Clearance Class Theta. The drone froze. The boatie flickered. Theta-class ... is restricted. Lune stepped forward, lowering her voice. Override protocol. Visera Blue. Command imprint. Lune Keitha II Crescent. The drone paused again, did a double tick if that was possible for a sphere and then lowered itself deferentially. Verifying retinal glyphs confirmed. You are ... Princess Lune. Max choked on his own spit. Princess like actual, tiara-wearing, diplomatically untouchable royalty. I told you my line was royal. You said that like someone who inherited a crusty family heirloom, not someone who could declare war with a hair flip. The drone turned its interface toward Max. And you are deeply underqualified. Name Max Older, coffee technician. Once dated a woman who claimed to be half centaur. Didn't ask which half. The drone word again. Unclassified entity. Genetic resonance detected. Access pending. Lune gave him a long look. It recognizes your pattern. That means the archive is real. Max felt his stomach knot. I was kind of hoping this was an elaborate prank or maybe a very vivid fever dream. One where I don't have to wear space pants. You're not wearing space pants exactly, which makes this worse. They were led down a corridor that pulsed softly beneath their feet, as if the hallway itself was reacting to their presence. Max tried not to step on any symbols that looked like alien emojis for explode. The air grew heavier, denser, like breathing through memory. At the end of the corridor was a vast chamber. In the center floated a crystalline obelisk that twisted in on itself like it couldn't decide which way time was supposed to run. Light poured from it in organized pulses, forming shifting geometric symbols that dissolved if stared at too long. This, Lune said, is the Echo Archive. Max stared. It looks like a screensaver that achieved enlightenment. Lune approached, touching a panel that unfolded from thin air. This holds the memory threads of the royal line experiences, emotions, identities. If you were bound to one of us, ... it'll show. I was hoping for a name tag, but sure. Let's do trauma archaeology. As he stepped forward, the archive's light surged. Symbols flashed recognizable, foreign, haunting. A shape began to form, a projection of a young woman with blue skin, glowing softly, holding a small object. She reached toward Max. He reached back. The projection blinked. Then it spoke. Memory link detected. Max Ilverin, keeper of the celestial key. Last recorded interaction, 4,362 cycles ago. Max turned slowly. I'm sorry, did that thing just call me Maxiel like a shampoo brand? You were keeper of the key, Lune whispered. You weren't just a bystander. You were part of the royal oath. That sounds legally binding. Can I retroactively object? The projection flickered again, showing snippets. Max kneeling in front of the blue-skinned princess, holding something small and metallic. The two of them laughing beside a glowing fountain. Then chaos, fire, and a shadow consuming the palace. Walls. Max stepped back. Okay, so fun twist. I was maybe space royalty, maybe space boyfriend, definitely space traumatized. You were part of a blood oath that binds memory and soul. Please tell me there's an opt-out button. The drone hovered nearby, cheerful as ever. There is no opt-out button. Of course there isn't. Lune touched his arm gently. We need to find the key, the original one. If it still exists, it's our only chance to stop what's coming. Max sighed. What is coming? The reason the palace fell. The thing that broke memory itself. Max took a deep breath, looking once more at the glowing archive. You know, when I signed up for a night shift job, I was mostly worried about foam art and rude customers. Now I'm suddenly the reincarnated royal memory USB of a dead space empire. Lune smiled faintly. We all start somewhere. Max looked down at his hands. They were shaking slightly. He made them into fists. All right, let's find this key. But I swear if someone makes a prophecy pun, I'm punching a wall, the drone chimed, prophetically noted. Max had questions, so many questions, but the first one out of his mouth was, is it always this cold in space, or is this station just passive-aggressively air-conditioned? No one ever complains, Loon said, barely looking up from the glowing schematic she was projecting from her wristband. But then again, most Resins have a higher cold tolerance than Earthborn mammals. Well, some of us evolved from blanket-hoarding primates. I need answers and possibly a sweater. They were crammed into what Loon called a stealth courier pod, which Max immediately renamed Space Sardine Tin with optional nausea. The walls hummed with idle energy. The seats were shaped for creatures with more lumbar ambition than humans had ever known. And Harold the AI had been reinstalled now as a small floating orb with one flickering eye and a glitchy British accent that came and went depending on cabin pressure. Destination locked. Surfaced coordinates of Ressa Prime. Zone 12, Harold chirped. Population density, moderate. Surveillance saturation, high. Wi-Fi availability, depressing. Max looked out the narrow viewport and saw what he could only describe as a glittering jellyfish in the shape of a planet. Lights rippled across its surface like mood lighting for a celestial nightclub. Is that it? Resaloon confirmed. It looks like it's flirting with me. It might be. The atmosphere is mildly sentient. Max narrowed his eyes. If this planet starts giving me compliments, I'm leaving. Unlikely. Hisa prefers sarcasm. The pod descended through layers of translucent cloud matter that shimmered like soap bubbles and occasionally coughed. Max clutched the seat. Was that turbulence, or did the sky just burp? Air consciousness adjustment, Loon said. Standard resin entry. You'll get used to it. I won't, Max said, as the pod did a sideways flip that sent his stomach into another dimension. They landed in what appeared to be a marketplace, though calling it a marketplace was like calling the Louvre a hallway with stuff. Hovering stalls drifted lazily through the air. Vendors offered iridescent liquids that whispered your name when you walked past. One small creature tried to sell Max a vibrating cube that promised emotional stability in 6 simple tones. Loon slapped it out of his hands. That's a scam. It was singing Bon Jovi. How bad could it be? It dissolves your bones after the 3rd chorus. Okay, that's bad. They passed a tall, spindly kiosk labeled Historical Inquiries and Outdated Prophecies, a bored-looking 6-side. Clerk was flipping through a holographic scroll while chewing on something that might have been a philosophy student. Max leaned in. Ever heard of the Celestial Key? The clerk didn't look up. It sounds important, which means it's either lost, stolen, cursed, or sitting behind 3 layers of metaphor. Next, they continued deeper into the city. Ressa Prime was built vertically and philosophically. Buildings floated, platforms rotated based on collective mood, and streets occasionally voted to become rivers. Max tripped over a railing that turned into a suggestion halfway through his fall. Why does everything here feel like it read one too many books on abstract art? He muttered. It's a culture rooted in dream logic, Loon replied. Symbol over structure, so I'm basically walking through someone's therapy journal essentially. They reached the Resistance Hub, cleverly disguised as a soup restaurant. The menu boasted only 3 options. Yes, no, and ask your soul. Loon ordered something in Resin that sounded like someone gargling stars. Max ordered yes and was handed a steaming bowl of what looked like glowing fog. He poked it with a spoon. Is this edible, or is this a philosophical challenge? Depends on your stomach's belief system, Harold offered helpfully. The rebel leader arrived wearing a patchy coat, 2 monocles, and the unmistakable aura of a person who had once lost an argument with a vending machine and never recovered. His name was Zeth, and he shook Max's hand as if trying to extract a confession. So you're the human dream fragment the princess dragged out of obscurity, Zeth said, peering suspiciously at him. You don't look like a royal memory archive. Max smiled weakly. Thanks. I moisturize. Zeth didn't laugh. The Chancellor knows someone's triggered the archive. He's watching everything. Every dream pulse, every memory node. You need to move fast. Define fast. Before he wipes you from every neural map in the system. Max blinked. So, like this week. Try this afternoon. Cool. Loon rolled out a map, if you could call it that. It looked more like a fluid sculpture made of shifting light. We think the Celestial Key might be located inside the old palace on the moon, she said. Problem is, that entire zone is restricted, guarded, possibly cursed. Why is everything on this planet either guarded or cursed? We're a dramatic people. Zeth nodded grimly. You'll need a distraction. Something chaotic, absurd, unexpected. Max looked down at his glowing soup. I could just take my shirt off and scream. Loon ignored him. We'll use the flux parade. Zeth raised an eyebrow. Are you serious? You said you needed absurd. What's the flux parade? Max asked. Lune smiled. An annual celebration of chaos and transformation. It's difficult to describe, but during it, rules get suspended, so Mardi Gras with quantum consequences basically. Perfect. I've always wanted to commit treason during a parade. Zeth handed Max a device. This will get you into the lower vaults. Just don't press the green button. Max stared. Why, we don't know what it does. No one's had the nerve again. Perfect. They began preparing. Max was given clothes that shimmered based on sarcasm levels and a communicator that translated both language and passive-aggressive size. Harold synced with local data clouds and began projecting parade maps, crowd behavior patterns, and occasional cat memes to keep Max calm. Max stood on a platform above the glowing city as twilight fell and the first lights of the Flux Parade ignited like someone had spilled glitter across the sky. People below were already transforming, limbs becoming instruments, hair turning to smoke, some simply vanishing into sparkles of laughter. This is either the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, Max said, or a very elaborate hallucination brought on by alien soup. Loon stepped beside him, adjusting the small device hidden under her sleeve. Ready? Not even slightly. Good, that's the right mindset. They jumped. They landed inside a 12-legged papier-matched giraffe. Max coughed up glitter and turned to Loon, eyes wide. You said disguise, not art therapy meltdown. It's tradition, she said, wiping confetti off her eyebrow. Flux Parade entries are expected to be nonsensical. The giraffe's interior was lined with anti-surveillance foam and smelled faintly of caramelized paradox. Outside, the Flux Parade surged forward like a psychedelic riot choreographed by sentient jazz. Crowds cheered, hovered, and shapeshifted in time with rhythms piped directly into their emotions. Someone floated past with a face made of keys, another riding a trumpet that screamed encouragement. Harold hovered beside them, currently disguised as a floating hot dog vendor. I've analyzed the parade path. Entry to the old palaces. Subterranean vault opens when the melancholy ducks pass the obsidian statue of Grivax. I refuse to believe any of those words are real, Max muttered, adjusting his sarcasm-reactive cape which had recently turned plaid. We'll disembark through the giraffe's stomach, Loon said. It leads to the old city conduits. From there, we reach the moonlift, Max groaned. You couldn't just say secret tunnel. No, it has to be some digestive metaphor, she shrugged. It was either this or the interpretive mime caravan. The giraffe lurched forward, legs moving with a rhythm that wasn't quite musical and definitely wasn't biomechanically sound. Inside, lights flickered as a countdown pulsed through the foam walls. Max rubbed his temples. Just to recap, we're infiltrating a lunar palace guarded by people who don't believe in stairs, to retrieve a mystical key that may or may not live in my subconscious, during a parade designed by hallucinations. That's about right. Good, just making sure I didn't forget to take my meds. When the countdown hit 0, a trapdoor opened under their feet. Max screamed. Loon sighed. Harold played elevator music. They slid down a translucent chute, emerging in a cavern that looked like a cathedral had merged with a black hole. The walls shimmered with ancient code. Stalactites pulsed with bioluminescent script. The floor complained. Every time Max stepped, Loon pulled out the vault beacon. The entrance is ahead. Max stepped on a glowing rune. It beeped. Oops. The ground opened beneath him. Again, he landed in a hallway where gravity couldn't agree on a direction. He floated sideways until Loon grabbed his ankle and yanked him back. Stop touching things. Sorry, my Earth instincts are calibrated to poke first. Apologize later. The moon lift was not a lift in the traditional sense. It was a column of liquid light, humming softly, suspended in air by 3 orbiting rings that looked suspiciously like engagement rings for interdimensional entities. Loon stepped into it and immediately vanished upward. Max hesitated. What if I explode? Harold blinked. That depends. Have you recently eaten onion-based logic? I have questions about everything you just said. Good luck. Max stepped into the column. It felt like being hugged by electricity and politely ignored by time. He emerged gasping onto a lunar platform, overlooking the old palace ruins. The palace was beautiful in the way dead things are when they don't know. They've died. Cracked towers, floating spires, still flickering with the last orders of a civilization that refused to be deleted. A force field shimmered weakly around the main entrance, flickering like it was too tired to care. Loon crouched beside a terminal. If the key is here, it'll be deep inside the throne room vault. Why is it always the throne room? Can't important relics ever be kept somewhere chill, like a breakfast nook? She didn't answer. Her fingers danced across the interface, and the field hissed open. They moved through the hallways, stepping over vines made of wire and dust, the holograms that wept softly when passed. Max caught glimpses, memories maybe of himself in places he couldn't remember, laughing with voices he couldn't place. They reached the vault chamber. The doors were inscribed with symbols that shifted when looked at. One read, remember. The other read, forget. Classic design, Max said. Choose your own brain damage. Loon placed her palm against remember. The door opened with a sound like inhaled breath. Inside was darkness, but not absence. It was layered like silence composed by an orchestra. At the center hovered the key dot. It looked like a folded idea, half met, half thought, rotating with impossible angles. Max stepped forward, heartbeat pulsing in his ears. As his hand reached out, the vault trembled. A voice echoed. He returns. Lights ignited. Shapes emerged from the shadows. guards in armor that shimmered like collapsed timelines. At their front stood the Chancellor, flanked by twin sentries with rifles shaped like questions. He smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Well, he said, his voice like silk soaked in static. The Lost Keeper, the Forgotten Heir, and the Exile. Max blinked. I think you've mistaken me for someone with a plan. You have the keys, resonance. No offense, but I don't even have my original teeth. You should not have come. Max looked at Lune. Do we fight? No, she said. We stall. Excellent. I was born for awkward improvisation. Lune stepped forward. Chancellor, you're violating pre-resonance protocol by weaponizing ancestral code within the archive sector. Cute, the Chancellor said. Do you think I care about protocol? I write new laws every morning with my cereal. Then you won't mind if we break one, she said, and tapped the side of Max's communicator. A blast of light erupted from the key, not outward but inward. Max screamed not in pain, but in sudden violent clarity. His mind fractured across time. He remembered her. He remembered standing beside the blue-skinned princess, the promise, the war, the betrayal, and the vow to return. The vault shook. Alarms screamed. The palace began to collapse not physically, but in memory. Walls distorted, flickered, rewound. The Chancellor staggered back, shouting into static. Lune grabbed Max's arm. We need to run. Max blinked, still dazed. I just remembered how to fold a dimensional napkin. Later, they fled into the crumbling corridor as reality peeled like wallpaper behind them somewhere above. The flux parade began to turn. They landed in a dumpster. To be fair, it was a recent tactical displacement bin, which meant it smelled like lavender and moral ambiguity, but it was still, functionally, a dumpster. Max groaned, brushing glitter from his hair. Is every escape plan of yours sponsored by trash? Lune peeked out from under a collapsed neural net and shrugged. Statistically, most rebellions involve waste disposal. It's tradition. Harold blinked awake from his emergency nap mode. We are currently located beneath the old council chambers, 0.4 clicks from the eastern portal array. Also, I believe I am now allergic to spatial geometry. Max sat up. Okay, so, we have a key that just tried to reprogram my soul, a collapsing palace, and a chancellor who wants to rewrite reality using space nostalgia. What's next? We use the key, Lune said, holding up the now glowing artifact, but not the way he wants. The key had changed. It no longer looked like a folded idea. It looked like a decision, solid, weighty, humming with ancient intention. Max couldn't look directly at it without his memories twitching. We need to reach the central broadcast spire, she continued. It's the only place the key's resonance can amplify across the planetary field. Max sighed. Of course. And let me guess, guarded, cursed, possibly haunted by bitter ex-boyfriends. Only one of those. They emerged from the bin, into a corridor that seemed unsure about its own existence. Lights flickered between moods. A hallway argued with its own echo. Max had long since stopped asking questions. When they reached the spire, the Chancellor was already there. He stood calmly, surrounded by 4 sentient drones and a floating legal document threatening to arrest time itself. Ah, he said, voice smooth as melted ethics. I was hoping you'd come. Max stepped forward. I just want you to know I'm doing this under protest and mild intestinal distress. The Chancellor raised an eyebrow. You don't understand what the key is, do you? Nope. I also don't understand why cucumbers are considered fruit, but here we are. The key doesn't rewrite time. It rewrites meaning, language, memory, identity, all soft code. Okay, but can it rewrite the last season of Galactic? Hospitally, because that finale was a war crime. Lune stepped between them. You're not using it. The archives didn't choose you. They chose a barista with impulse control issues. The Chancellor sneered. They chose someone who still remembers what promises mean, she snapped. The air tensed, the drones aimed, the key pulsed, and then Max did the stupidest thing he'd done all week. He stepped forward and activated it. A burst of soundless color exploded from the device. Time buckled. Space yawned. Everyone froze not in motion but in memory. Max stood alone, surrounded by echoes of his own life, fragmented selves arguing over coffee orders, childhood dreams of stars. That one time he tried interpretive dance, and regretted it instantly. In the center of it all stood the blue-skinned princess. Not Lune, her, the one from before. She smiled, sad and bright. You made it. I don't remember everything, Max whispered, but I remember the promise you always did. She reached out, placing her hand over his chest. This isn't about fixing the past. It's about freeing it. Max blinked. Is this going to involve an emotional metaphor? Yes, he nodded. Cool. Just checking. The world pulsed. The key unfolded, not into a weapon, not into a command, into a story. It played not with images but feelings. The truth of what happened, the lies that followed, the pain the Chancellor had buried, the roles everyone had played. Everyone saw it. When Max opened his eyes, the spire had gone quiet. The drones were still. The Chancellor was on his knees. I didn't remember, he whispered. I didn't want to. Lune stepped forward, her expression gentler now. You don't have to control the narrative to be part of it. The key dimmed. Its purpose fulfilled. Max handed it to her, feeling strangely lighter. So, what now? We rebuild. Not the empire, not the palace, just us. Harold floated. By statistical likelihood of post-authoritarian society success, 14%. Max grinned. Hey, better than my dating average. Later. After the spire had been repurposed into a public library and the Chancellor had taken up gardening with only minor incidents involving vengeful lettuce, Max stood with Loon on a floating balcony, watching Ressa's twin moons blink back into sync. You know, he said, I still don't understand half of what happened. That's all right, she said. You're still part of the story. He looked at Herthos, long ears twitching in the wind, eyes full of light, and Shadowand smiled. So, princess, haha, she rolled her eyes. Don't start. He raised a mock-serious eyebrow. Does this mean I have to bow? Or do I get a tiara? You get dish duty, Harold beeped. I will supervise. Max leaned on the railing, looking out into a sky full of quiet stars and chaotic hope. Next time, he said. Can we just save a kitten from a tree? Loon nodded thoughtfully. Only if the kitten's a shape-shifting time thief deal. And somewhere far above them, the stars chuckled old and bright and watching still.